everybody, it's Debbie from Inkylicious, and for today's demo we're going to use the Lakeside cabin stamp and the Lakeside boat stamp. Even though these are two separate images, you can stamp them together to create one larger image. They're perfect for all year round use, summer, autumn, spring, but this one that we're going to do today is going to be winter. So depending on what sort of style you like, obviously winter it's white, and I'm working on Kraft Card for these samples. And the one we're going to do today, because I've been asked quite a few times now, can I just go over again when we did the 3D cards how to do the 3D effect. So I'm going to go over a few pointers and try and give you a few more hints just to try and make it easier for you to create the raised 3D effect on your cards. I'll take you through what we're going to be using today. We're going to be using an aperture stencil. The ones that we do which would look perfect with the winter cabin would be the bauble stencil or the round bauble stencil. There's also an ornate square stencil, but the one I've decided to use today is the holly leaf stencil. It's an A5 stencil, but it works perfectly with this stamp. I'm also going to be using the multi-mountains that we do, mountain valleys. Is you can choose to snip these to separate them, or you can keep them as they are and slide your card in between them to use them to create your mountains. I've snipped mine, so I'm just going to use one of these. The other thing then that we're going to use is some Kraft Card. Now Kraft Card comes in a variety of colours and textures, so I'm just going to use a mid-range colour. I've got VersaFine Clair Fallen Leaves for stamping the images. I've got Memento Rich Cocoa for doing the shadowing. I've got Brilliance White for doing the tinting of the Kraft Card. I'm going to use my blending brushes, the white Signo pen, a white acrylic pen, some stickles if you fancy a bit of glitter, and just a couple of brushes. These are actually makeup brushes. I've just rummaged in my drawer, and these are just for applying the shading. So let's get everything set up and then we'll be straight back. What I've done here is, this is my A5 card, but I've tilted the stencil just to ensure that I get the most of the stamp that I possibly can in the card, and because these are going to join up, so obviously I'm going to get a lot of the tree in here, I'm going to get most of the cabin here, and then the rest is what we can create the scene from. The first thing I'm going to do with the stencil is to draw a white outline around the outside of it, and I'm going to use the Signo pen for that. And this just starts us off with a nice clean edge for applying the white. So I'm not going to bore you and watch me do the whole of this. So I'll just crack on and do it, and then I'll be back. Okay, so using the blending brush, all we're going to do is pick some ink up, and we're just going to go around the edges just to bring some of the white into the Kraft Card. So you may think that you're not putting a lot on, but you're probably putting more on than what you realise. Just to begin with, I'm going to keep the centre clear, and then once we get the stamping done, we can always come in and add some more white if we feel we need some more somewhere. So this just gives a really lovely soft textured effect. If you wanted to tint the white, Then all you're going to use is your regular ink pads over the top of the white, and that'll give you a lovely soft pastel tint. Right, so we're going to leave that at that, and then we're going to stamp it next. So what I'll do first is I'll place the cabin on, and we'll just see where the boat is going to sit, and then we can adjust. So those are my lines. So if we keep that one about there and there. So we'll stamp the cabin first. So this is Versifying Clare Fallen Leaves. As opposed to stamping in black, stamping in the fallen leaves isn't quite as harsh. Okay, so we've got that one on. Now we're going to line up the boat. So you can see the line on the boat will match with this line. Now if you don't want to ink it all up, if you'd rather have more of the trees in, which we'll do on this one. So I'm going to join up from this fir tree. Same again, we'll pick the stamp up. Let's get in. And if there's any areas that you don't want to be stamping, I don't want to get the boat at the bottom, so I'm just going to just work my way down first. And if I need to ink up any other areas, I can always come back and do that. We can fill in this area with the trees just to expand them a bit. Okay, so at the moment we're all collected up here, and so I'm gonna just use this. We'll just stamp these without putting it on the block. So all I'm going to do is just add some extra foliage into here. So I'm just going to pick up the top of the stamp. Okay, so that's the stamping done. So what I'll do is remove all this off the stamp press, and then we'll be back again. Right, I'm going to come back in with the white and just deepen a few little areas that I want to be a bit more brighter. So especially at the end of the leaf. Because we will use the white pen as well and add some other detail, but this is just to get these areas deeper white than what they are at the moment. The nice thing about the blending brushes, because they're angled, you can just use the points just to get detail into certain areas. just use the mountain stencil just here in the background. One side is valleys, the other side is a mountain, so you can flip them, and we'll just put a hint of a mountain here in the background. We'll go about there with it. So that's going to be the mountain in the background. The last thing I'm going to do now is just once again I'm going to trace around the outside again. So this will just give you a nice outline for when we take the stencil off. So I'll do that and then we'll be on to the shading. Using the white pens, the white acrylic pen and the Signo pen, we're just going to add some shading and texture to some of the trees and the cabin and the grasses. Because these are both water based, I've also got a paintbrush, because we can just soften the pen strokes out just with a little bit of water. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to start with the cabin. Now I'm just going to add some detail here, and then when I fill this in you'll see what I mean about we can use a bit of water. So even though this is basically scribbling, all I need to do is just to add the small drop of water, and we can soften all this out. If you want to add things like icicles hanging off the roof, then just do some lines and every now and again squiggle downwards. Okay, so we'll do this one, squiggle down. And we'll go across the edge here. Again, we can add a few little icicles. If ever you feel any of your white is a bit too harsh, again just take a tiny drop of water and just smooth it out. This really comes into effect when we're doing areas like this. So if I just squiggle some white on here, and then pick up a dab of water and just soften it all out. And we can always come back in and add a bit more white just to highlight any areas again. The same down the path here. So I'm going to carry on and colour this in with the white, but I'll fast forward it slightly, and then obviously you can still see how I'm going to be colouring it all in. Okay, we'll call that done for this. Now you can obviously spend more time doing yours, but that's your basic of doing your white shading. What I'm going to do now, in fact, let's just put a bit on the mountains and just make it look as though we've got some. And again, just get your brush and soften it out. There we go. Right, the white acrylic pen, again, always give it a good shake. So all we're going to do now is just add some snow over all of this. So just use something to tap it with. A little bit more. Just make sure we haven't got too much. Right, that'll do for that. So what I'll do is I'll take the mask off now, not the mask, the stencil, and then we'll have a look at the card that we've got so far. If you're doing a few cards, you could just take this and lay it back down on another card. Don't worry about these if it's ripped, because this is going to be trimmed down anyhow. So this is where we're at so far, and what we're going to do now is do the shading. So I'll just get all this cleaned up and then we'll come back. So the next part here is shading. So we go from it looking just as though we've stenciled through a stencil to looking as though it's 3D and popping up off the card. If you haven't seen our previous video, the Ornately 3D stenciling, that gives you the basics of it. I'm just going to go through and just give you a few more pointers on this as to how you know where to do your shadowing. Right, so we've got the mask. So we'll pop this over, you'll see it fits. But where do you know how to do your shadows? Let's lift it up and straight away you'll see I'm getting shadows. You will probably get better shadows than me because I've got 3 lights from different angles here. Whereas if I only had one source of light, say here, then my shadows would all be at one side. But if I hold this up, can you see now where the shadows are? So all I'm going to do is follow where these shadows lay. So straight away I can see this one, or these, want to be coming up from this corner outwards. So we'll just cover the white. Right, these are makeup brushes. I've raided my makeup brush drawer. All you want is a thin head brush. Pick some ink up. If you just need to dab it and check. So we've just seen where to put our shading. So we're just going to bring it off this edge and start off light. You don't need to go heavy with this. Right, so we've just seen it needs to come from here. So straight away we've got that shading. So if I hold this up again, so we'll do this one now. And then I'll show you how to make it look as though the leaf is actually curling up off the card. So again, just from this angle here, as we're just going to bring it to this edge. Okay, so now we're already straight away we're starting to get the 3D. Say I want this one to look as though it's actually curling up off the page. Don't take the shadow right to the end of the leaf. All we're going to do now is start to sweep away before we get to the leaf. Okay, so now we're getting that effect. So again, I'm just going to grab my stencil, see where my shadows lie. So this one, I've got quite a bit in this corner here. take it along this edge, it slightly comes out again here, and again we're going to make this one pop up as well, so we'll just take this out here. So can you see straight away this one now looks as though it's starting to lift up? So what I'm going to do is just keep doing this, and I'll work my way around until we get to this stem, and then I'll be back. Right, we're at the stem part now. So as you can see, we're already starting to look 3D on it. Let's just bring you in a little bit more. So now it's popping up off the page. So I'll just check this corner here. Let's put it the same way. Right, so I have just a tiny little bit in this corner. Just a smidgen. Right, so let's see where it goes with this stem. So it's literally just along and round that edge. I don't want too much on here. We can just bring this out to give it the effect of the page curling. So there you have your 3D holly leaf. Now in my original card, what I did was, after I did the white, was I just tinted it, just using just my blending brushes, one with turquoise and one with green. The other thing I did was just use the holly off the stencil. So you've got left and right ones, and that one went there. So same thing again, the white blending brush, go around it with the white pen. Splattered around the edge, but I covered this over before I did the splatters. And again, if you want, you can just either splatter over your holly leaves or go around them. And then just a touch of glitter to give it a bit of sparkle, which I don't know if you can see that. So there's your 3D holly leaves. And I hope you do give this a go, because it really does make a difference to your stenciling. Thanks for watching. Join me again soon.